Hey guys, what's up? It's Ripe again. In today's video, a stupid Karen calls the police on me after petting my service dog. She claims the dog is clearly illegal and should not be in public. She then tells the police that I have a gun and I almost get shot. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the story. So I used to work at a consulting company in Asia owned by a baby boomer European guy. Let's call the company COG and the owner as Prick. To give a brief background, Prick spent his entire career working in the hospitality industry for various hotel brands all over the world. At one point, he specialized in one niche area in the industry and set up a consulting firm to provide consultancy to his business connections. The company employees were majority expats, and I spent my entire career working in the financial industry, and I am quite a specialist in the field of capital market fundraising. This prick approached me with a great plan to list one of his properties in North America in a stock market. At that time, it seemed to be a good project. He also offered me a management position in the company he set up to deal with the listing process and a good salary in comparison to the job I had at the time. The agreement stated that if any party would like to terminate this agreement, they need to inform the other party 3 months in advance. Failing to do so will cost the party who initiated the termination a penalty fee equal to 3 months' salary. This will be relevant later. Unfortunately, I joined the company at the worst possible time, the year end of 2019, and initially things were alright. Prick spent only 1 to 2 days a week at the office and spent the rest of the week abroad to acquire new businesses. However, as everyone knows, a few months after that, the COVID pandemic hit the hospitality sectors globally. Prick lost all his business deals in the pipeline, and his property in North America was also shut down. The only income stream for the company was payments from the existing contracts. Prick got stuck in the office for 7 days a week with not much money in the bank account. This is when he showed his true characteristics. Despite the government's highly encouraged work-from-home policy, Prick was dissatisfied with the idea. As a boomer, he wanted to see his employees working all the time. He called anyone who chose to work from home as lazy and cowardly. In addition, he would randomly call them several times a day on non-important issues just to ensure that everyone was at the desk all the time. Furthermore, he would assign lots of unnecessary tasks, remember all business deals were cancelled, to these people to do, so they would need to stay very late to finish the work. He cut off 20 to 30% salary for all employees, including himself. This seemed acceptable at that time given the economic conditions, however, this will come up later. Also, he would be pissed off at anyone in the company who mentioned any news about the pandemic. He just wanted to pretend that nothing severe happened and that things would be back to normal soon. Due to the pandemic and the financial status of the company, my role significantly shifted from getting a company listed to selling our assets to whoever gives the right price. And thus, the company can survive. During these months, I had to work closely with the company's CFO called Fatty. Fatty had a very impressive resume with a degree from an Ivy League university. However, for some reason, there was nothing inside that brain. He could talk about all the financial jargon all day long, but he could not understand even the basic concepts of those words. Fatty would make mistakes all the time and trouble other colleagues. For some odd reason, Fatty would receive only minor criticism from Prick. Conversely, if other employees made 1/10 of the mistakes that Fatty did, they would receive harsh criticism. We were approached by various buyers. One of them was one of the largest real estate developers in this country, let's call them Mackie. We had a few meetings with senior executives from Mackie to represent our North American properties. They seemed to be interested to invest $100 million in acquiring the property, but then they just disappeared. Later on, we were approached by a private equity firm, let's call them Dummy. Rather than acquiring the property, Dummy made an offer for shares of COG. As a result, a series of due diligence occurred. I had to lead the deal from my side, and during the process of document preparation, I found various histories about Prick and COG. Prick always claimed to his potential clients that his company had been involved in various projects worth billions of dollars in the past. It was partially true, however, his participation was very limited to less than 1% of those projects. There were a few projects in that COG played a vital role, however, those projects were relatively small. To make matters worse, 100% of them failed before completion. There were various companies that Prick claimed to have co-founded or was a part of the key management. However, there were no financial records of it. By digging into financial statements, I found out that he paid back all the money he saved from cutting employee salaries into his personal account as a form of bonus. I felt horrible for working for such a phony. However, at that time it was in Q4 2020. It was way too difficult to get a new job in the middle of the pandemic. The last straw came when we were about to submit the financial model to Dummy to set the valuation. I developed a financial model which would calculate all the potential deals into the valuation. All I need was the input of pipeline data from Fatty. After I plugged in the data, Prick asked Fatty to help review it. Fatty complained to everyone that the model was wrong and there were so many mistakes. However, when I checked, all those mistakes that he mentioned came from those inputs he provided to me. Garbage in, garbage out. I informed Prick that it was not my mistake, but Fatty's. However, Prick criticized me for not being responsible for my own mistakes and said that even though it was Fatty's mistake, I was still responsible to verify them. How the F could I verify the correctness of raw data? I wanted to quit so badly at this point. And remember, the 3-month notice period. This is where it became relevant. Throughout 2020, various employees quit. However, the term became a pain in the butt. It would be difficult for anyone to find potential employers who would be willing to wait for 3 months until the notice period is served. And thus, employees had to either pay the penalty fees or put in their resignation in advance to start looking for a job. For the locals, we would take the risk of staying at home with no job. However, the expats needed to choose either to take a risk in leaving the country or to pay the fees. Most chose to do the latter. The worst thing I experienced about this contract clause was when one of my colleagues, who was one of the first employees of this company, decided to quit because her grandma was about to die in a few weeks. Therefore, she wanted to go back home as soon as possible to spend the remaining time with her grandma. And yet, Prick insisted that she needed to pay the penalty fee. In every meeting, Prick would try his best to scare the crap out of everyone, but talking about those companies that went bankrupt and trying to remind us to be grateful for still having jobs. I held my grudge and waited patiently until February 2021. The pandemic became better and employers started hiring again. I got 3 offers within the second week of the month, and based on the situation, I knew that I would eventually get a job either in these 3 companies or somewhere else. And thus, I submitted my resignation, which would be effective in May. Prick was furious. He knew he could not lose me at this stage since I was the only one who could execute with Dummy, but he was too arrogant to admit it. Instead, he gave me the worst counteroffer discussion anyone could have. He said that I was a coward for jumping away from the crisis and I would be a failure all my life if I chose to walk away now. He tried to talk about all the deals that would be coming and I would miss out on working on those projects. He said that I should ignore the higher salary that other companies might offer. The pandemic was harsh on everyone. I should stay to see the company's greatness. In the meantime, I could ask for money from my parents or my wife's parents. Needless to say, the conversation did not change my mind even a bit. When all those efforts failed, he brought up the 3-month notice period. He said that no company would be willing to wait 3 months and that I needed to pay a penalty fee to him if I quit. Unfortunately, this was when his own policy backfired. I intentionally did all the stupid mistakes that Fatty did. When he complained, I simply responded, well, it was his responsibility to verify the information that I submitted, right? I did my job very slowly, and thus he basically had to pay me 3 months' salary for the work I normally completed in 1 week. Whenever he complained, I told him that he could fire me anytime. In that case, he needed to pay me 3 months' salary as a penalty fee. For a person who always takes advantage of his employees, he probably wanted to scream at me. However, that was not the best part yet. By the end of April, HR from Mackie approached me. She said that she got my contact from a business card I gave to the senior executive several months ago. It turned out that the executives were very impressed with my skills. They wanted to hire a new vice president and viewed me as a high potential candidate. I took the offer and started working 2 weeks later. A few months later, Prick tried to use all his connections to reach Mackey's chairman to propose his North American property once again. The chairman assigned my team to review the property one more time. Last time they were interested, but they did not want to make an acquisition in the middle of the pandemic. However, this time they felt the timing might be right and would like to explore more detail. My boss assigned me to look after the project. Since I knew everything about the property, he let me decide whether we should move forward with the deal. And to be honest, the property was fine and Prick has improved the property's performance very well since his acquisition. However, a year ago when we first approached Mackey, Prick explained to me how he would screw every penny out of Mackey's pockets. To avoid criticizing Prick directly, I don't want to look like a guy who badmouthed his ex-employer, I pointed out all loopholes within the business model and explained that we could be taken advantage of from these loopholes if we proceed. Being a smart man, my new boss could sense that something is fishy about Prick, so he asked me to speak more about my experience. I told him about some of Prick's unethical behaviors mentioned above. Mackey management not only decided not to invest in COG's properties, but they also blacklisted COG and Prick from being potential vendors. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I would say that was absolutely brilliant revenge on an awful ex-boss. And I'm curious, have you ever gotten revenge on your boss after you quit the job? Let us know in the comments, and now let's move on to the title story. This one is titled, Karen calls the cops after petting my dog and almost gets me shot. Posted by user The Hatmaker on r/ripestories. So it starts like this. It finally happened. I had a run-in with a very hostile and entitled woman. A little background to set the stage. I live in the Midwest in the United States. As we enter the wintry season, the temperature drops to an average of around 25 degrees Fahrenheit. That is below 0 degrees Celsius for the rest of the world. With it being so cold outside, I walk my service dog at our local retail store. We will give this place a name and call it Walmart. I typically walk around for about an hour before I do a little shopping and then I leave. And by the way guys, I would already say that is a dangerous amount of time to spend in Walmart and increases the risk of seeing an entitled person dramatically. Anyway, over the last year I've walked her around Walmart at least once a week, so all the employees know me and my dog. My service dog is actually considered a working dog since she is certified as a search and rescue dog. You can think of her as a very specialized canine dog. I don't call her a K9 for the reason that I am not employed by any police department and feel calling her a K9 gives her a title that is not accurate to her specialization. Now on to the story. Last night I got off from my job and went to Walmart to get a few things, and of course I brought Luna Bear, I guess the dog, in with me. We were probably walking around for about 20 minutes when a lady and her young daughter entered the aisle from the other end. They approached me and the lady asked if they could pet my dog. I said yes, because how I had trained Luna was to want to interact with people, so I have her interact with as many people as possible. After a few minutes of talking, I mentioned that at the moment I was doing refreshing training with her to keep the skills fresh. I do this because we only do about 3 or 4 calls a year, so refreshing training is a weekly thing for me and my dog. For some reason, a switch flips in this lady. She grabbed her daughter and stepped back and screamed, "Your dog is not trained?" I tried to clarify to this lady that that's not what I meant, but she was not having it. She began to scream and shout about how I should not be taking an untrained dog into public places. My reply was, "No, you misunderstood. My dog is fully certified." She was cutting me off. She screams, no words, just screams. I might add that we are not the only people in this aisle and more people are coming to see what's going on. She begins to approach me and say that I'm not responsible enough to handle this dog and that she is going to take my dog away from me. This whole time, Luna has been sitting by my left side looking up at me and waiting for a command like a good pup that she is. This woman grabs Luna's leash and yanks it out of my hand. Before she can do any more harm, I grab Luna by the harness and unclip the leash. The lady stumbles back and falls down. She begins to trash on the ground like a toddler as she screams that I don't have my dog on a leash. I am just completely dumbfounded at her actions up to this point. I give Luna the command to scoot back, which means she walks backwards until she's about 5 or 6 feet away from me. At this point, the Karen is back to her feet and fiddling with her phone. My guess was to call the cops because she is shaping up to be a wild Karen. At this point, I would just leave, but she still has the leash and I was very uncomfortable being in a tight space. So this is where things get even more serious. The Karen begins to approach me while screaming on the phone. As she does so, she notices that I am wearing my sidearm in my open carry position. How she did not see it the whole time is beyond me. She begins to scream into the phone saying, "He has a gun!" At the mention of this, the crowd that was growing is now quickly discovering that they no longer want to watch and begin to move away. At this point, Karen is about 20 feet away from me. This went quickly from a dispute to a full-blown hellscape. I, knowing the police response, is now going to be completely different at the information of a firearm involved. I needed to put myself in a position where I was not going to get shot myself. Turning to my dog, I give her the command to follow and she is happy to stay by my side as I forget all about getting the leash back. The Karen continues to scream as I make my way out of the aisle towards the front doors. By the time I get to the doors, I see 2 officers enter the Walmart. Both have their long rifles out. They are not pointing them at me, but have them in the low ready position. I stop in my tracks, put my hands up and tell my dog to lay down. She does what I say. The cops, seeing me, ask if I have a firearm. I say I do and they proceed to have me lay down and keep my hands from my body. I comply, they approach and handcuff me. Before I can say anything, Karen arrives with more officers and she points at me and says, "That's him!" She begins frantically telling the police how I threatened her, and the whole time she is waving the leash around. One of the officers asks if the dog laying down is her dog, and she says yes. Up to this point I have not said much because, well, I haven't had a chance, but at this point I knew what was happening and gave the command for her to heel. So Luna enters the crowd of officers and comes to lay by me and rest her head on my lap. At this, all the officers turn to look at Karen, all realizing at once that Karen was lying to them all. And by the way, they looked pissed. The tone quickly changed and in a moment I was let go and Karen was being arrested for several felony charges. CPS was called for Karen's daughter since they could not contact her father or any relatives. I will keep you posted if anything else happens because yes, I am pressing charges against this Karen. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I gotta say, this Karen was obviously completely out of control, attacking a service dog like this. And also what I noticed is that many entitled people and especially Karens don't know how to behave around dogs. I'm really happy that the story ended the way it did. If you would have been in OP's situation, what would you have done? Let us know in the comments, and while you're at it, please don't forget to like the video because that would help me tremendously. Thank you so much. And the next one is titled, "Was I the jerk versus my daughter?" So I, 42 female, met my husband, 44 male, 6 years ago and we've been married for 2 years. He has a daughter, 7 female, from a previous marriage that did not end well after his ex cheated on him. His daughter rarely ever sees her mom as she constantly travels the world. I feel awful that his daughter has not had a good mother figure in her life, so I've been trying my best to take her out to do girly things and bond with her, since her mother is not around to do so. She always would call me by my first name, but for the first time when we were sitting at the table for dinner, she called me mom and it just did not feel right. It made me feel uncomfortable for some reason. I told her that, "I'm sorry, but I'm not your mom. You cannot call me that, sweetie." And she was shocked and started to tear up a bit. My husband and I were arguing all night, telling me what I did was awful, and he told me that she feels comfortable and close enough to me to call me mom, and I should feel special for her calling me mom. He does not want to see how I feel from my side. Her mom is still very much alive and I don't want to disrespect her by taking her title as mom. It all feels very awkward as I'm used to her calling me by my name. Life was moving so smoothly until she had to call me mom. So Reddit, am I the jerk for not wanting to be called mom? And yeah, Ripe Stars, please let me know in the comments what you think about this. Do you think that OP is the jerk for not wanting to be called mom? And for essentially making the little girl tear up? Let us know what you think in the comments. People of Reddit said, "You are the a-hole for crushing a little girl in a vulnerable moment. She probably had to work up the courage to go through with it, fearing your rejection. And you made her worst fears come true." Comment number 2, not the a-hole, I see both sides here. My recommendation is that she will call her mother mom, and maybe you two come up with a new name for her to call you. Maybe it is Mimi or Mama or something similar. However, she needs to call you something and she wants you to be one of her parents. That is huge and really special, and I hope you realize how uncommon it is with step relationships. Heck, you, she and her dad can have a family meeting to decide your new name. Make it a celebration, get dressed up and go out for a dessert at a fancy restaurant and toast your new family. And guys, with this we have reached the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, then please feel free to check out my Patreon over at patreon.com/ripeyoutube or join my YouTube membership program by clicking the join button to get access to even more exclusive videos. Thank you so much for your support, and I will see you again tomorrow.